Well, if an idle mind is the devil's workshop, then old Beelzebub's got nothing on Alex Lifeson. What does he do on his first extended vacation from Rush in about 20 years? What else? Goes back into the studio to make an album. This time, however, it is to fulfill a personal desire to write and record music that is uniquely his own. Hence, Victor, Alex Lifeson's first ever solo project. And we're going to be hearing what Alex did on his vacation as he joins us live from our Canadian flagship station, Q107 in Toronto tonight. Good evening, Alex.
How you doing, Steve?
Very good, thank you, and I hope the new year finds you well.
Very, very well.
Do you recall, Alex, when it was that the idea, or more exactly the desire to do a solo album first sort of came upon you?
I remember thinking about it in the late 70s. I think we all thought about it at that time, without making any kind of real definite movement towards it. And after all these years of recording and touring, I realize now, after doing my project, that it would have been impossible until I had a length of time like I did to work on it. I worked 10 months on the record. The last 3 months I worked every day on it, and I didn't stop thinking about it for a minute of that whole time. So it really required that sort of a commitment.
And really being able to step back from the band completely, as you all did.
Yeah, I think we needed to do that regardless. At the end of the last tour, Geddy and his wife Nancy had a baby girl, which was about a week after the tour ended, so their timing was perfect. But I couldn't see myself sitting around for a year and a half not doing anything more constructive than working on my golf game. So I kind of dove into it at that point.
You know, all three of you in Rush participate equally in the creation of the music and the execution of the music of that band. But I think a case could be made that of the three of you, we probably know the least about who Alex Lifeson is. Would you agree with that?
Possibly. I guess. I suppose in some ways I've been a little bit more in the background, but I think I'm certainly an integral part of Rush and the sound of Rush. The other two guys happen to be brilliant at what they do. So,
well, there's no question about that part of it, but I think it's more in terms of how much you choose to reveal.
Well, exactly, and I think for all three of us, we're very protective of our private lives, and you know, when you do something like we do, and you're always on the road and you're always in somebody's face, it's important to have something that's not really accessible to a lot of people.
That doesn't belong to everybody else. Yeah,
exactly. And I was just going to say that our private lives have been that thing. It's been an anchor for us, really, in this sea of craziness that touring and being in a rock band is.
Back live tonight, the phone ringing off the hook for your calls for Alex Lifeson. Before we get to him, we want to say hi to everyone listening to us tonight all across the Rock Radio Network in Canada, and the folks tuned in to 105.1 KMJX in Little Rock and Gulf 104 in Tallahassee, Florida this evening. Hope to hear from you folks tonight, and every Monday nights on truly interactive radio, Rockline. Alex Lifeson with us. Our first stop, San Diego tonight. Talon is on the line listening to Rock 102.1. Talon, you're on with Alex Lifeson.
Hey, how you doing, Alex? Good evening.
Good, Talon. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm just kind of wondering what the inspiration or the driving force behind Promise is. Like, are these songs that you've been holding on to, during the course of Rush, and just decide to make an album now, or is it just something that's hit you now? The idea.
No, none of the songs were things that I had in my own little catalog. I kind of approached everything fresh. I co-wrote a number of songs with Bill Bell, who is another guitar player friend of mine that I'd met working on something else a couple of years ago. And Pookie and I have become very, very close, good friends.
You must be if you can call him Pookie.
Yeah, well, that is kind of weird when we're in public. And we stopped holding hands. So
good.
It's not quite as difficult as it was. But we wrote a number of songs, that being one of them. And really, it was just fresh. And it was nice to work with somebody else. I love working with Geddy and Neil very, very much. But it was, again, I think really good for me to be around other influences and around other people and to be in a different situation completely.
Those of you who are familiar with the work of another fine Canadian artist, Tom Cochrane, might recognize the name Bill Bell. The two of them have worked together over the years, have they not, Alex?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, Bill did a lot of work on Tom's record last summer, as well as a couple of other records at the same time. Larry Gowan is another Canadian artist, and Kim Stockwood as well, that he's been working with quite extensively. So Bill's been quite busy. He's a fabulous guitarist and a terrific person to be with, full of life and energy, and I really like his company.
Down to Florida we go. Robert is in Coral Springs tonight listening to 94.9 Zeta in Miami this evening. Hi, Robert.
Hi. Yeah, I was wondering if Alex had recorded a song last year with Skid Row, Sebastian Bach. And I have another question.
Okay.
You might want to answer first.
Okay, for that one first.
Yeah.
Actually, when we first wrote Promise, Sebastian was in town for Christmas. He's from fairly close to Toronto, and he popped by my place and put a vocal on that song. The problem was that as things developed and as I wrote the rest of the material for the record, I really wanted to have one single voice on there, one single male voice. So when I talked to Edwin about working on the record and we got focused on all the songs, I decided to go with him. The take that Sebastian did on the song was really, really great, and Sebastian is a fabulous singer. And talk about energy. The whole studio at home was shaking when he was out there jumping around, bouncing off the walls, doing it. And I really felt really badly about not using him on the record because I know that it meant something to him, and he really enjoyed working on it. But unfortunately, I had to make that call, and I did.
Robert, what's your other question?
I heard Alex was also in Car Stereo Review magazine back in '94. I was wondering if he had some sort of special system, or, you know.
I've heard that the word killer may be applied to your system, perhaps literally, Alex.
That was in my wife's car. I didn't have anything special, but it was quite a monstrous system, and I can't even remember all the things that went into it, but it was quite a system. And you could hear the car 100 miles away, actually, at mid-volume. So my son currently is driving around in that car, and he's blown the speakers a couple times, and I thought that was impossible. But, again, he takes after his father, so...
Blown the speakers. I think the doors came off, didn't they?
Yeah.
Robert, thanks for the call. Jack in the McAllen, Brownsville, Texas area, listening to the new Q94.5. Jack, you're on with Alex.
Hey, what's going on?
Okay, Jack, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually in a pretty good mood. I was wondering, I've got two questions for you. What do you like most about working solo?
Well, it was a very new experience for me. I think when I look back on the whole thing, I think just being in charge of it and the fact that I pushed myself much harder than I think I've ever done before. I've come out of it with a new sense of who I am and what I want to accomplish, and a whole new work ethic. I love work now, and I can't get enough of it.
And Jack, your other question?
Okay, and did you find it easier or harder than working, with the rest of Rush?
In a lot of ways, it was harder, only because the full responsibility was mine. I wrote the material, I played guitar, I played bass, I played some keyboards, I did some programming, I worked on the cover, I paid for the thing. There was every aspect of it I did. So in that sense, it was harder in some ways than, what we do with Rush. But, it was a very different thing for me, and I'm glad of the experience. But it doesn't affect anything that I feel about Rush and what I want to do in the band.
Alex Lifeson with us tonight. To the Riff in Detroit we go. Jeff is in Rochester, Michigan this evening, and you're on with Alex Lifeson. Jeff?
Hey, I just want to say I'm a huge Rush fan. I really enjoy Victor also.
Thank you.
My question is, in the songwriting process, is it the music that usually comes first, or was it the lyrics? What inspired you?
In the case of Victor, I wrote the music first. I wrote, I think, 5 songs and kind of spent some time on that, worked on lyrics for those songs, and then continued writing music, and then took a chunk of time off and worked on lyrics for those songs. I have to say that I was pretty nervous about writing lyrics. I hadn't done it in about 18 years, and I don't remember it being a particularly great experience 18 years ago. But I was afraid that I couldn't do it, and that it would sound a little corny or whatever. But once I'd settled on thematically what I wanted to do with it, it seemed to come fairly quickly. With Rush, it sort of goes both ways. Quite often Neil will submit a whole pile of lyrics, and Gad and I will go through them and kind of pick what we'd like to get started on. And then other days we just feel musically inclined and start working on the music and then fit the lyrics to it afterwards.
Alex Lifeson, there's a song, that's the opening track from the album, as a matter of fact, and lyrically that's sort of cutting right to the chase, isn't it, Alex? Getting right
he's
to
not,
it.
That guy's not feeling too good.
Apparently not. Don't
He's
care.
a little peed off.
Don't Care is the name of the track from Victor. Let's talk to Andy now in Wichita, Kansas. He's listening to T95. Hi, Andy.
Hi, my question is, how did you get hooked up with Edwin from I Mother Earth to play in Victor?
I Mother Earth opened the last show that we did on the last tour, which was here in Toronto. And although I didn't get a chance to meet Victor that night, I met some of the other guys in the band. And when it came time to think about vocalists for Victor, I had to listen to their CD and thought that Edwin would really suit the material well. He just has a certain quality and a menace in his voice that for songs like Don't Care, for example, or The Big Dance, I just thought he'd be perfect. I called him up and he said that he'd love to give it a whirl, and we got together and we've become quite good friends. And I think he's done just a fabulous job on it. I thought it was great.
No question.
Performances.
And I Mother Earth, did I hear you say earlier that they have a new album coming out this spring?
Yeah, they're just finishing up now. They may, in fact, be done. And I think they're talking about a release in the next month or two with a tour following, beginning in April. So look out for that. They'll be great. I played on one of the songs on the record, and the material is really strong. It's going to be a really good album for them, I think.
Looks forward to that. Let's head to the Chicago area. Chris, listening to 103.9, The Wabbit in Chicago. He's in Grays Lake, Illinois. Chris, you're on with Alex.
Hi, Alex. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Fine. What's your question, Chris?
I wasn't supposed to say how you doing, but oh well. I actually got a request and a question. The request is, the song Bite for the Snow Dog hasn't been played in about 50 tours, so could you maybe do it next time? And
yeah, we were holding out for the 51st.
And my question is, the Auden poem, Victor, is obviously pretty dark and disturbing. And what got you interested in Victor, and why did you decide to put it to music?
I was fiddling around with the music. I wanted to have something on the record that was a little different than the other songs. I really wanted to have some variety overall on the record. I thought it'd be kind of cool to do a song where I didn't actually play guitar on and just did all the programming. I thought also once the music had been written that it'd be kind of fun to do a spoken word thing, sort of a pseudo beatnik kind of reading. And I opened a book that I have of his collected poems to Victor, and I read it through, and although Victor, the poem, is very, very long, I condensed it for the song. It really cut the essence of what the record was about, dealing with the dark side of love and how it can push you to do things that are pretty horrific. So it seemed to suit the record quite well.
And not only, and I want to make sure I'm correct on this, Alex, but not only is the album named Victor, but the project, and indeed the people you're working with collectively, are also being called Victor. Am I right about that?
That's right. I didn't want to call it the Alex Lifeson project or the Big Shut, Big Deal project. I mean, everybody that worked on the record was so into it, and and I just felt that it would be fairer to have everyone involved as more of a band project, and to salute them for it.
Let's talk to Tom now in Springfield, Ohio, listening to 104.7 WTUE in Dayton this evening. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Alex, I'm happy to be able to talk with you tonight.
Thanks.
I have two questions for you. First, let me say I think the record's absolutely brilliant. But I think only the first three songs there's a hint of your work with Rush, and the balance of the record seems to lean toward a more modern rock or more alternative side of rock. I was wondering if there was ever any discussion about marketing the album to other than traditional rock stations.
No, we never really talked about that, and I never really thought about that. When I set out to do the record, I really wanted to wing it. Whatever I felt that day instinctively is what I kind of followed up on. So there was no game plan for it. As far as I was concerned, once I finished the record, it was done. And if no one heard it, that's okay. At least I did it. All of that stuff comes later, and it's usually in somebody else's hands. Yeah. That's better suited for that sort of thing.
Really a myriad of styles on this record. You cover a lot of ground here. There's a lot of different places to go. Amanda in Hillshore, New Hampshire, listening to 100.3 WHEB in Portsmouth tonight. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Amanda.
I have two questions. First, I was wondering, what kind of feedback have you gotten from Geddy and Neil on this album?
They were both very, very positive and very supportive. I don't think, wanted to get involved in it in the early stages of it while I was writing and recording. I mean, they always asked how things were going, but I think they wanted to basically stay fairly neutral on it and didn't want to, affect at all what I was doing. After I finished, they were the first two people that I gave copies to, of course, and the feedback that I've gotten back from them has been very positive and very supportive, and I love them for that.
Alex is at Q107 in Toronto tonight, near his own hometown there. Stan is in Brantton, Ontario this evening. Stan, you're on Rockline.
Hey, Alex, Happy New Year.
Hey, you same to you, Stan.
I was wondering if stuff you'll do in the studio with Rush will bring you new and maybe a different style of playing because of the solo album?
Well, for me personally, I think that my level of playing is quite high right now, just because I've been working on this project for so much of last year, and I had 2 weeks off and then started this new Rush record. So I'm feeling like I'm in really good shape playing-wise. And the fact that we had a year and a half off and we all did other things, I mean, Geddy made this beautiful baby girl. Everybody came into the project feeling so good. We had, I think, the best time that we've ever had writing the material for the new Rush record, and we started recording it this past week. And I think it's going to be great. I really have high hopes for this one. It just feels so good.
Back to the phones now for Alex Lifeson. Robert in Ewing, Louisiana, listening to 92.3 WCKW in New Orleans this evening. Robert, say hello to Alex Lifeson.
Hello, Alex. How you doing, sir?
Good, Robert. And you?
Yes, I'm doing just fine. Good weather down here today.
Not so up here.
I have a couple of quick questions. Years ago, you worked with Rick Emmett on a project, Beyond Borders.
Right.
Was that kind of the impetus for this project? Did you want to work more as a solo artist?
No, not really. That didn't have anything to do with it. I've worked on a couple of projects here and there whenever I've had the opportunity, and I enjoy doing that very much. But no, specifically that project had nothing to do with this.
Rick Emmett, of course, the driving force behind Triumph for many, many years. Kevin in Virginia Beach, Virginia, listening to FM 99 WNOR in Norfolk, Virginia this evening. Hi, Kevin.
Hello. Hey, Alex. How you doing?
Great.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you and the other guys from Rush for inspiring me to pick up the bass 15 years ago, and I think you're the most underrated guitarist I've ever heard. What I'd like to ask you was, have you thought about recording with the old Gibsons and Hi-Watts you used to use?
Actually, I've got a Hi-Watt that I picked up for recording on this album that we're working on now, as well as my stacks after stacks of Marshalls, and I'm using the Gibsons quite a bit in the studio, but I do like using the Paul Reed Smith guitars live and also in the studio, so I have a whole pile of stuff that I go through.
Got quite a setup there in your own home there, I understand, too. Quite a studio there in the homestead there, right?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We managed to knock off pictures off the wall and other things that were sitting on a desk out there, and that became a contest after a while. Can we turn it up loud enough to knock things over?
Vibrated right to the floor there.
Absolutely.
Let's talk to Ed now in Madison, Wisconsin this evening, listening to 101.5 WIBA FM. Ed, you're on with Alex.
Hi, Alex. Love your work.
Hi, Ed.
Very strong album. And as I'm listening along to it, I see your sense of humor cropping up and shutting up. I'm just wondering what possessed you to put that on the album. I got a kick out of it.
Well, the album was developing into quite a dark record, and I just wanted to inject a little bit of levity in it. So I got my wife, Charlene, and her best friend, Esther, who's a real character, in to do this little bit of nagging about the funny little habits that some of us have, and the silly little things that we argue about that end up becoming big things in the overall picture. We had them in there for about 7 hours, going through so many different things, and they were well lubricated with a couple bottles of wine. And by the end of it, of course, we couldn't get them to shut up.
Of course, right.
They just didn't. Well, we supposed to got on a roll. And by the way, let me tell you, so we had a lot of fun with that one, though.
Yeah, it sounded like Charlene might have been having a little too much fun there towards the end.
Yeah, well, Charlene's the straight girl. It's Esther that really takes over.
Oh, is that right? That was a great stuff.
But that's Esther. Michael?
You got to hear that track on the Victor record. Let's talk to Jerry in Jacksonville, Florida, listening to Rock 105 tonight. Hi, Jerry.
How you doing? It's a pleasure to be talking to Big Al Dexter of the Orbit Room.
Now you got it.
I have one question for you, Alex. Your son Adrian co-wrote the music and did the program for At the End and the Big Dance. My question would be, could we possibly see a CD from him in the future?
I sure hope so. He's written some stuff that just blows my mind. I mean, he's got a handle on creating moods and colors with music that is overwhelming. He's 18 years old. He's going to be 19 in March. And I think that he has a future in music, and I know that's what he wants to do. And I support him and stand by him 100%.
Is he a player as well? Does he play an instrument?
He's been playing guitar for 4 years. He's very good, even though I don't get a chance to hear him much. He's very secretive about his playing, but I sneak around the house and catch him when he's practicing. And he's a good player, but he's a really good songwriter, and he's developing those skills right now. And I think that perhaps in a couple of years, I might actually hear something from him.
Great skill to have. Good question there, Jerry. Thanks for the call. George, listening to Q104 in New York, has a question about that particular vocalist. George?
Hi, how are you?
Fine. What's your question for Alex?
I just wanted to know, where did you find Del Bello? She's her song, her sound is great. She sounds a lot like Geddy from the earlier days, and I read about that in the Guitar magazine, but it was just I guess it was just a coincidence.
Well, it didn't occur to me when she did it, because I was sitting there in the control room staring at her in the studio doing it. We spent quite a bit of time on the song, but she's been around, she's a Canadian singer. She's been around for quite a while here in Canada. She has a few records out here, and she's got a record coming out very shortly, if it's not out already. She was just completing it when I was finishing up Victor. But she is just amazing. I mean, even when I hear that song today, it gives me goosebumps. She's got such power and such a sense of character in her voice. I loved working with her, and I think I felt totally in love with her on that day working together. She was great. A really smart, excellent person, wonderful to work with.
Hopefully this will give her some exposure down here in the States, and we can get clued in on what a lot of Canada has known for a number of years here. Del Bello is her name. Thanks, George, for the call. Scott in Miami, listening to 94.9 Zeta tonight. Scott?
Yeah, hello. I'm a flight instructor down here in Miami, and I had read somewhere that you should do some flying. I was wondering if you're still sticking to it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just picked up a little bit of time on a Navajo going down to Bearsville, friends plane. But more importantly, over the last couple of years, I've been flying with the Canadian Air Force on the F-5.
Wow.
I've got a couple hours on F-18s, but I've picked up, I guess, about 4 hours on the F-5. And last time I flew, it was chocks to chocks. Did the whole thing, taxied out, takeoff, did some air work, came back, did 5 touch and goes, and came to a full stop landing and brought it in, and they chocked it again. So that was my one of my thrills of my life to do that.
I bet. How many G's were you pulling at one time?
I think the max we pulled was 6.2 in the 18. That was a lot.
That's a whole new way of looking at life, isn't it?
It sure is.
Scott, good call. Chris in Oceanside, California, listening to Rock 102.1 in San Diego this evening. Chris.
Hey, how's it going, Alex?
Good, Chris.
You know what? I think Rush and you guys are one of the best bands ever. Your acoustical guitar work is beautiful.
Thank you.
My question for you is it possible that in the near future, or any time in the future, that Rush might do an acoustic collection of songs?
Sort of an unplugged thing, I guess you mean. I think we're kind of really plugged in, and I would think that we'd probably like to keep it that way. We've never felt a desire to really do that. I think I'd rather try to play some more of the older songs that we haven't played in a long time as they were recorded or as they should be played live than spend the time to work out on an acoustic set.
Wow, so do them in their original arrangement. Boy, that would make a lot of the old fans thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, it would be fun to do that, I think.
Yeah. Mark is listening to us in beautiful Banff, Alberta. CJ95 in Calgary is our station there. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
You're on with Alex Lifeson.
All right, Alex. I've been a big fan of yours for a few years now. Been following your last 6 tours. I was just a lot of Canadian bands have been influenced by you. Among Tragically Hip, I was wondering if you were doing anything with any bands like that, especially the Hip, in the next little while.
I'm sorry, we lost you there for just a second. Can you repeat that?
He wanted to. He said that so many Canadian bands have been influenced by you and Rush, and he mentioned specifically Tragically Hip, and if you may have been or foresee in the future perhaps being involved with that band on any level.
Excuse me. Not at this point. The Hip are a very big band in Canada, and they're a terrific band. And they tour and do everything in their own right. Perhaps in the future we might have the opportunity to work together. I'd love to go out every show and watch them play, but as far as working together, no plans for it.
That would be a nice bill, wouldn't it? Rush and Tragically Hip, love to see that.
Yeah, it would be great, actually.
We're speaking with Alex Lifeson. We'll have more from the Victor album and more of your phone calls coming up on the Global Satellite. Rush, Alex Lifeson with us for the full 90 tonight. Mark is listening to us in beautiful Banff, Alberta. CJ95 in Calgary is our station there. Hey, Mark.
Hey.
You're on with Alex Lifeson.
All right, Alex. I've been a big fan of yours for a few years now. Been following your last 6 tours. I was just a lot of Canadian bands have been influenced by you. Among Tragically Hip, I was wondering if you were doing anything with any bands like that, especially the Hip, in the next little while.
I'm sorry, we lost you there for just a second. Can you repeat that?
He wanted to. He said that so many Canadian bands have been influenced by you and Rush, and he mentioned specifically Tragically Hip, and if you may have been or foresee in the future perhaps being involved with that band on any level.
Excuse me. Not at this point. The Hip are a very big band in Canada, and they're a terrific band. And they tour and do everything in their own right. Perhaps in the future we might have the opportunity to work together. I'd love to go out every show and watch them play, but as far as working together, no plans for it.
That would be a nice bill, wouldn't it? Rush and Tragically Hip, love to see that.
Yeah, it would be great, actually.
On the Victor album that not only showcased the stellar guitar work of Alex Lifeson, but also some great work there by Peter Cardiali on bass. Is that the right way to say that there, Alex? Peter Cardiali? Cardinelli. And also Blake Manning on drums there. The song is called Mr. X. Terry in Columbus, Ohio, listening to QFM 96 tonight. Terry, you're on with Alex Lifeson.
Hey, Alex, thanks for all the great music all these years. And thanks for taking a call from my brother earlier, actually. My question was, a frequent topic on the National Midnight Star is your nightmares and how they've inspired some of the things you've written over the years. Are any of the things on this album from nightmares?
Oh, well, this was a nightmare working on it at times, but no, they haven't been inspired by anything like that. And they're not so much nightmares as they are just very unusual dreams. But I've made promises to both Ged and Neil that I would never talk about it because they're so sick of hearing it.
One of those dreams where you wake up and go,
what the hell was that?
That's right. Stephen in Lowell, Massachusetts, listening to Rock 101 WGIR FM in Manchester, New Hampshire this evening. Stephen.
Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Hi, just wondering if you still keep in touch with the B-Man, the author of Rush Visions, Bill Banashevitz. I'm not sure of the pronunciation.
Yeah, no, not really.
There you go. That one answered. Matt in, is that Denton, Texas, listening to Q102 in Dallas, home of the soon-to-be going to the Super Bowl Dallas Cowboys there. Hey, Matt.
Hello.
You're on with Alex Lifeson.
Hi, Matt.
Alex, I'm a huge Rush fan. You created a really super album that stands up really well on its own. Congratulations.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask you, doing all the work on the album, you're on your own, did it change the dynamics of recording with Rush at all? I mean, did it change your input level that you might have given on a Rush album, considering you've done all this on your own now and you have the experience behind you?
Yeah, I think I feel a little more self-confidence having done what I did. And I think if I had brought anything into this new writing session, it has been that. I'm a little more definite in what I'm doing and the way I hear things. And I think when Ged and I work together, that has just helped us work a little more efficiently. We seem to be getting all our results much quicker than we have in the past. And the results seem to be much more definite. Now, I'm not saying that it's all because of this. The fact that we had the time off and everybody was in such a great headspace really added to that whole experience being as good as it was. But for me personally, I do feel more confidence having done this.
Thanks to everyone for listening and for calling tonight. We want to thank Ray Daniels and Stephanie Robertson at SRO Management, to Tony Mandich at Atlantic, to Danny Kingsbury, Bruce Henney, Jim Veal, Joe Rossi, Christian Hall, and all the great folks at Q107 in Toronto, and, of course, the Rock Radio Network. And to our guest this evening, Alex Lifeson. Always a pleasure, Alex. We talked about it very briefly, and I know you guys, Rush has just gone back into the studio. Can you give us any sort of idea of the direction of the new Rush album?
No, I can't, but I can say that we started recording last week, and everything sounds great. The material is really strong, and we're really feel strongly about this record. I think it's going to be one of the best records we've ever made. I always think that with each record, but this time I really believe it. There's a feel to this record that I don't think we've ever had on any other Rush record, and I can't wait to hear this record finished.
Nor can we.
Really looking forward to it.
And congratulations on some great work with Victor, and I hope you get a chance to take that out on the road one of these days as well.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I'm Steve Downs. See ya.